For today's guest, I've got a beautiful friend called Jessica. And I say friend, we actually connected online. You actually approached me, didn't you? And sent a beautiful message to me, which was just gorgeous. And Jess has literally just flown in, got off the plane from interstate. So I'm super grateful to have you here, Jess. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling?
I'm a little bit nervous, but no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
That's okay. Everyone, as I said to you before, everyone says that. So just nerves are good, but just honestly, you're literally just sitting, hanging out, have a good chat, put the world to rights and go from there.
Sounds good.
So for our listeners, let's dive in and just have a chat about you, about why we've got you here today. But before we get right into that, what's Jess's life look like? Like, where do you live? I know you lived on the Gold Coast for a while.
Yeah.
So let's maybe go back, Jess, age 19.
Oh. Jess was having a lot of fun at age 19. Yeah, so I grew up in Newcastle, in New South Wales. Gosh, 19. I would have been in uni.
Yeah.
So I studied primary school teaching.
Nice.
So I would have been in uni. I was still living at home then with my parents and my brother.
Yeah.
Oh, was he still at home then?
So what's the age difference between you and your brother?
So just under 2 years.
Right. Older or younger?
He's older.
Older, okay.
Yeah. He's the big brother.
Yeah.
He may have moved out into a share house by then. I can't quite remember. It was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just living the uni life. I loved uni so much. It was so social and
student bar.
Parties. And, student bar and like watching bands and parties on the weekend. And yeah, I loved it.
And so that was 4 years at uni?
4 years at uni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not doing teaching now, so what happened there?
No, I did it for a while when I graduated. But I think when I got halfway through my degree, I kind of realised that maybe it wasn't something that I wanted to do.
Yeah. Do you think that's because Evie, as you know, she's just completed year 12. And I think there's so much, I don't know, pressure, for a better word, of you got to choose and what are you going to do when you get older? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And you're so young and you're making these decisions.
Yes.
And then feeling like, well, there's actually a lot of Evie's friends who've gone, I just decided to do psychology because I've got an interest, no passion, but I'm interested in it. And that's just, better to do something than not at all.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of where you were?
100%.
Really?
So mum was a primary school teacher.
Right.
And yeah, it kind of comes to that time where you've got to fill out the form and put down your preferences.
Yeah.
And my first pick was psychology, actually.
Really?
Because that actually really interests me. I like to know the psychology of everything or situation. So that was my first pick, but I missed out by, I think, 2 points or something.
Right.
So my second pick was teaching, and I think it was just because mum was such a brilliant teacher. I'd been in the classroom with her before seeing her teach.
Yeah.
She seemed to love it. She did love it. And I loved kids. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll give it a crack. So I did. And then, halfway through, I just thought, I'm not really sure about this. But I also was at that time, again, not really sure about psychology. Had no idea. So I just thought, okay, it's better to just have a degree. So I'm just going to finish this degree and then whatever comes afterwards comes.
Yeah.
And I did teach for a little while. And I did really love being in the classroom with the kids and, kids coming up to you saying like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I've learned so much from you. And that's a beautiful part of it. But I think at that time I just felt like I needed to try different things. I kind of wasn't ready to just go straight into a career for the rest of my life at that age.
Yeah.
Just knew there was kind of more things to experience.
So what are you like 22 at that age? 22 then?
Yeah, so leaving uni, I would have been, around 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 22, 23.
And so you've thrown in yourself into other work and just experiencing life, I suppose, at that age. Gosh, I didn't know. What was I doing at 22?
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't know. It was more about who I was going out with, that I was socialising and earning the money and all that at that time, really.
Just a social life,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
I think kids know so much more now. Like Eve is far more switched on than I ever was at that age, for sure. Then fast forward, so you're living at home still with your parents.
Yeah.
After you've done your degree, you've gone into the workforce. Are you happy to go into about your brother?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, start unpacking that. So
Yeah.
lead us into that. So maybe let's go back a week or so, or even the day before, whatever you feel comfortable with about your beautiful brother.
So Josh worked as a radiologist at a hospital in Newcastle for years. Like that's what he did at uni. But he had this really, I think because he was so good at his job, he had this really great kind of deal with them where he would work for 6 months and then the other 6 months he would travel the world.
Great.
Yeah. He had it good.
That's a great deal.
But so he was into adventure sports. So
Right.
he was a base jumper.
Okay.
So the ones where they kind of wear this suit that looks like it's got wings.
Wings.
And they just jump off the cliff and just kind of trace the,
Okay,
the face of the cliff
let's go
down.
back, because like that to me, you see that, you see documentaries and you see things like, and to be honest with you, when I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago and you mentioned that Josh was a base jumper, I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. There was such a thing. What was his interest in that? I mean, you've got to be super brave and courageous to be doing anything like that. How did that suddenly unfold for him? Where did that interest come from?
Josh is just someone that just wants to try everything in life.
Yeah.
He kind of really inspired me to have such an open mind, to show me that there's so much to do in this world.
Beautiful.
And experience.
Yeah.
And I think potentially him and maybe a couple of his mates, they went skydiving just as like a boys thing.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
And he loved it. And so because he loved it, he decided to get his skydiving license. So did that. You've got to do like however many, like lots and lots of jumps basically to get your skydiving license. And then from there, he wanted to go to the next extreme, which was base jumping. And I mean, I think it gave him a reason to travel the world, really, because Australia is quite flat. So you have to go to other countries to really get, those mountainous landscapes.
So have you done skydiving, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just the once?
I've done it twice.
Twice?
Now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it once, and I people said to me, oh, once you've done it, you'll just want to get straight back up there.
Yes.
No.
Not for you.
No, not for me and not for hubby. Like, no. Great, we did it. Yay for us, but no. But I understand that free falling, and that was just like, you have to surrender to that, because it's like, well, there's no point fighting it. You've got no choice, and it's just beautiful.
For
I
sure.
got all that, but I just felt quite nauseous after, but I'm such a wuss. But tick, yeah. So I was interested. I wondered if you'd done it. But with Josh, like qualifying as a skydiver, so that meant could he take people out tandem with him to jump if he wanted to? Or was it just for him to jump?
It was so he could just jump on his own and didn't have to be like with someone. He could just jump on his own and could just rock up on
Anywhere.
any day.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm doing a jump today.
Yeah.
Yeah. That freedom.
As you do. I could just
As
see
you
me
do.
doing that. Not. So then with base jumping, is there kind of another training that you have to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he went to Spain and lived on a base, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
He lived there for a while and did all of the training for base jumping.
How long was that for?
How long was that for? I think it was only like a 6-month stint.
But still,
that he
you've got to
was there.
apply yourself and...
Yeah, and I mean, that was like every day, like training every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And quite expensive too, I guess.
Yeah.
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 And so with him doing that as well, obviously loving it for the adrenaline and just, you know, it sounds like it was in his DNA, just meant to do that. But did he anticipate that he was then going to train others and help others? Was that kind of, or was he just doing it for fun?
I think he was doing it for the adrenaline for sure. And him and I had many conversations about it because I was so intrigued. Kind of why, not necessarily, like I kind of got it. I was like, hell yeah, because I'm quite an adrenaline junkie as well.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I loved skydiving so much that I would easily apply myself and go get a license. And I think I would love it so much that I would love to get into base jumping too.
Really?
But my mum would kill me.
Yeah.
So I would not be doing
Yeah.
that. But so we had a lot of conversations about base jumping and what it meant to him. And he explained that it wasn't just about the adrenaline rush that you get. He explained that when you're flying down this mountain, he felt very, very connected to nature.
Oh, how beautiful.
And for him, it was more of a spiritual thing.
Really?
For him. Yeah.
And was
that's
he
what
really
fulfilled
spiritual?
him.
Was he quite spiritual?
He was, yeah, spiritual in a way. I guess the same as me, like, you know, just believing in some type of higher power.
Yeah.
Which usually, you know, we attribute to the universe.
Yeah.
And he was very, I think like me, like he felt very alive in nature and very at peace in nature.
Beautiful.
So that was very just, yeah, it was definitely more a spiritual thing for him. Yeah.
So did you ever worry about him more than, like, I mean, I say that with, you know, those you love, you do always have some kind of element of worry no matter what they do or are doing. It's just that comes with love, doesn't it? For me, my brother was in the police force and yeah, of course, there was that little bit extra of worry given what he did. Did you feel like that more so for Josh given what he...
Maybe slightly, but maybe perhaps when I would read articles of other base jumpers around the world that had had an accident and passed away,
Yeah.
it would cross my mind. But I just kind of always trusted that Josh would never be reckless with it and, you know, was always kind of packing his parachute correctly and was very meticulous because he took it so seriously.
Yeah.
So to be fair, I probably didn't worry. There was a little bit, of course, it's a very dangerous sport, but I didn't worry too much. And there were a lot of jumps that he did that he would tell me about but not tell mum and dad about because he knew that mum especially would really
gosh,
worry.
yeah. For sure.
Yeah, she worried a lot about it.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, that comes with the territory, doesn't it, as mums do.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the day before Josh's accident, where was Josh then?
Josh was in Switzerland.
Right.
Yeah.
So over there travelling or over there doing more training or?
He was over there just doing more jumps. So
How long ago was this, Jess?
2018.
Okay.
So yeah, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So Josh had made a lot of friends around the world through base jumping. So he did a little trip at the time. I think he may have visited friends in Italy.
And how old is Josh then?
37.
Right.
37 at that time. So he'd been on a little trip, you know, visiting friends, doing some jumps with them. And then he arrived in Switzerland, and the day before, he actually had heard about this wonderful jump in Switzerland he was determined to do. So he actually the jump that you kind of have to do this massive hike before you actually get to the jump.
Yeah.
It's like a 2 hour hike, 2 to 3 hour hike you do first before you do the jump. So he had actually done that jump, the same jump he did the day after that he didn't survive. So he'd already done it once, and he'd said to Mum, I just had the best jump of my life. You should see this place. It's incredible. Like the hike. He just said, honestly,
Whereabouts in Switzerland was it?
That's not coming to me.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. So he spoke to your mum and he was saying it was the best.
Yeah, he sent her a picture from like at the top before he jumped.
Oh,
and
God,
just said,
how does she even deal with that? Like
Yeah.
receiving that picture going, I'm so happy for you. Oh my gosh, you know, worrying at the time.
Of course.
So is that why you went back the next day? Because it was so amazing.
Yeah. He wanted to do it again. So he had said to Mum, I just did the most amazing jump. Like, it's so good. I'm going to actually go back tomorrow and do it again.
And then, so off he goes. Did he go on his own?
Yeah, he went on his own. And I mean, it's not, I think they advise in the base jumping community not to do jumps on your own because it's such a risky sport.
Yeah.
That it's best to go with someone else in case something happens and they can call for help.
Yeah.
And I didn't know of him ever doing jumps previously on his own, and neither did Mum. So that was really, we thought that was a bit strange that he went on his own that day. And it turns out, I've spoken to his friends since, that he used to go and do jumps on his own all the time. So but at the time, us not knowing,
of course,
it was a bit strange.
So did he tell you, did he tell your mum that he was doing that jump again, or only the day before he said, I'm about to do
the day before? Right. He said, it was so great. I'm going to be doing it again. Yeah.
And obviously, given the time difference as well, can you remember where you and your family were that day?
Yeah, so Mum was actually coming out of hospital the day that she found out. She found out whilst she was still in hospital and about to leave. No. Mum and Dad are separated. So Dad was with his partner in Thailand at the time, and I was living on the Gold Coast at the time, so I was just at work. Just a normal day at work.
Did you know he was doing that jump again as well? Your mum knew, but did you know?
No, I hadn't kind of spoke to him in a few days. The last conversation we had was just us kind of worrying about Mum. Yeah. She'd been so sick in hospital, and it was just kind of talking about Mum and just worried about her. So I knew he was in Switzerland, but I didn't. Yeah, he'd had the conversation with Mum, so yeah, I didn't know.
Josh obviously does the jump, and then what happened? How did that unfold then? If he was there on his own, like someone found him? Or?
Yeah, so apparently, and luckily, to be honest, there was a hiker on the mountain at the time. So the hiker was hiking and Josh flew over in his wingsuit, which was very common because it's like base jumping is like very common.
From that spot in particular.
Yeah. And that particular hiker had said that she does the hike all the time and she's very aware of all the base jumpers and stuff, so thought nothing of it. Continued her hike, and then as she was coming down, she noticed Josh laying there, had an accident. So she called the emergency services straight away, and apparently they got there very, very quickly, and yeah, he'd already gone. So, when we found out, I was just like, I need to know the details. How did this happen? So I had contacted some of his base jumping friends who knew all the technical stuff, and we were just trying to piece together, like, how on earth did this happen? And turns out it was just an accident.
His chute didn't work, or?
No, so he had pulled his emergency chute, but he was too low. He was out of altitude. So potentially, because when base jumpers jump, they actually follow almost like a flight plan. So they follow a path. And he was off that path. So whether or not when he was cruising down, he thought, oh, I might go this way a bit instead, do something different than I did yesterday. And potentially that decision meant that he just ran out of altitude and didn't have enough time to pull his chute.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
So sorry. So who called? I'm assuming your mum was called first or your dad was called first?
I think Dad was contacted first and he got on a plane straight away to go to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Because they'd said to him, we need someone to come here and identify him. Mum had just been in hospital. And even still, if Mum wanted to go, I think Dad was like, no, I'm doing this for our family, basically.
Yeah.
Mum was packing up her bag ready to leave hospital. She'd been in hospital for 6 weeks or something.
Oh, gosh.
So she was just getting ready to leave and the police came into her room to tell her. Yeah.
Oh.
Poor darling.
And that's, yeah, I mean, firstly, she's recovering after an extensive stay in hospital herself, so still feeling terrible after that length of time. Mm-hmm. And then having to be faced by that. Mm. Did she know as soon as they walked in that she knew there was something?
Had no idea. They asked her, they obviously had to make sure that she was who she was.
Of course,
and that Josh was her son. So I started asking her questions. Where is your son? What is your son's name? Where was he today? And she was obviously just baffled, so confused. Why are the police here asking me these questions about my son? Like, what? This is
I'm
really
at the
strange.
hospital. Like, she's not even at home. She's at the hospital. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And they told her that he'd passed away. And I think they had told her then that they'd been in contact with my dad. And I'm just so grateful that at the time my mum's sister was with her in the hospital and was able to, kind of get her in the car and take her home. Mum made the decision to get on the next flight to fly up to the Gold Coast and tell me in person.
Did she? Mm. Oh, that makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Oh, she would have been so poorly herself and having to. So you had no idea, and then of course your mum flies in. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, I had no idea. And so I was having a pretty normal day at work, but at the same time, it's really funny when you think back. A standard day at work, but it was a bit of a funny day at work for me. First of all, there wasn't that many people in the office that day. Usually everyone was in the office. Wasn't that many people in the office, or a lot of people had to leave early for some reason or another. So there really was only me and one other lady, I think, that were in the office at the time. And my kind of best friend at work at the time, she had felt sick kind of in the middle of the day. And she had said to me, I don't think I can, I want to go home. I feel really unwell, but I don't think I can drive. And I said, oh, I'll give you a lift. No problem. She only lived kind of just down the road from work. So I ended up driving her home. So there was only me and one other lady in the office. And the friend that I'd driven home, she had lost her sister a year or so before this all happened. And it just makes me think, I just don't think she was meant to be there when I found out. It's just crazy to think. I'm just so glad that there really was only just me and another lady there, not everyone in the office.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't many people in the office, and we kind of had the reception area unattended. So if somebody had come into our front office door, I knew that there was no receptionist there. So I heard the door had kind of opened, and this was around just after 4 p.m. So I got up from my chair and thought, I'll obviously go and greet whoever it is. And I went to leave my office, and all of a sudden I see my mum and my auntie. And mum was holding an A4 piece of paper, it looked like, holding it to her chest like this. And at first my reaction was like, hey, what are you two doing here?
Surprise.
Yeah. And I could see my mum had been crying and I could see she was holding this A4 piece of paper and I thought, oh, shit, mum's got cancer. She's coming to tell me she's got, I'm with me with, you know, this report to tell me that she's got cancer. That was literally exactly what I was thinking. And then she just started saying, he's gone. Josh is gone. And I thought, no, he's not. Like, he's not, mum. Like, you're tripping. Like,
just stop now.
Yeah. He is. And I was even looking at my auntie. I kind of felt a bit offended. I was like, what? This is weird. Like, mum's being weird. Like, this is
why would
strange.
you come in and say such bullshit, basically?
I started to get a bit angry and I'm like, like, you're making this up. He's not. I'll call him. You know, it could be, he's base jumping. It could be another person, you know, because it happens.
Yeah,
base jumpers die. I'm like, no, mum, it's not. And she was obviously just blubbering and kept hugging me and I just was kind of like, whatever. So I think I literally called him on Facebook Messenger because we could communicate that way. I think I called him and was like, nah. I think my auntie kind of chimed in and mum might have as well, saying, no, it's true and your dad is about to catch a plane to go to him. I was like, yeah, okay. So I messaged my dad. I think I said something like, is it true about Josh or something like that? And he called me straight away and he was crying. And I think I've never heard, I think there's only been one time in my whole life that I've seen my dad cry. So I was like, shit, okay, this is actually serious. And when dad had confirmed it and said, yes, like I need to go and identify his body, that's when it kicked in for me and I just kind of sunk to the ground and just couldn't believe it.
Just in an instant, your life's just completely
100%
changed.
Just a normal day at work. I'd only spoken to him, you know, a few days before and then just,
Do you know when you said about that day at work, how things were different and, you know, obviously staff members weren't there who should have been there and then you got one of your best friends who'd lost her sister a year before and so you'd taken her home because she wasn't well. And it's interesting because conversations that I've had when something so traumatic has happened, and not just people on my podcast but friends and friends of friends, and certainly in my situation as well, and the kids can vouch for that, is the energy, everything was totally different that day when people talk about that day. And in, you know, in your situation with Josh, that morning you wouldn't have been able to put your finger on it.
Exactly.
And you probably didn't give that, because it's so traumatic, another thought apart from just literally surviving and putting one foot in front of the other. But until later on, like when I look back at that day, that morning, everything was slow motion. I can't explain it, but it was the energy was off. And is that how, like, is it something like that for you?
Yeah,
like everything was
felt
just
odd. Like odd is the word that I can think. Like just a bit strange, like just a bit. And even when I took my friend home, my phone, because I lived on the Gold Coast for a while then, but I was kind of I worked more northern Gold Coast and I was more familiar and lived on more kind of southern Gold Coast, I guess, or middle of the Gold Coast. So when I was driving to her house, I needed to have my maps on to get to her house because I just had no sense of direction there. And I dropped her off and my phone went flat. So I had to make my way, and she like kind of lived in the suburbs, you know, in all these little back streets and things. So even that was just odd. Like I was just so disoriented. I didn't know where and how to get back to work, and I laughed a bit. But I was like, oh, like it's fine. Like I'll
get there.
I'll get there.
Might be another
somehow.
5 hours, but I'll get there.
But just little things that kind of happened that were just a bit out of the ordinary and a bit of a weird vibe in the air. Yeah, that you can't put your finger on, like you said.
Yeah, it's crazy.
An odd vibe.
So your beautiful mom, I mean, coming out of hospital after 6 weeks and then having to get on a flight, which is, you know, full on anyway, even though it's a short flight, but that short flight would have felt like 24 hours for her, I'm sure, and then some. And then your poor dad doing the long haul flight, you know, just horrific. Does everything seem, it's a strange question, but from when you've called your dad, well, your dad's called you back, and then it's started to, I mean, even though he said those words, it's still very surreal, isn't it? Like, it's like you're just having an out-of-body experience. What happened then for you and your mum and your auntie? Did you go back home to your place? And
we did, yeah. So I had only just moved into a new one-bedroom apartment, like probably maybe a week before. So my mum and my auntie there, and I'm thinking, far out, I only have a one-bedroom apartment, like where are we going to fit? And it was tiny. But yeah, we drove back to my house. Obviously left work straight away. And Mum was like, no way, Mum was driving. And what she was holding was actually just a big photo of my brother. She like brought that with her. And my auntie was like, oh, I don't really know. I'm not really familiar with Gold Coast. I don't really know where to go. And I just said, no problems. Like, I can drive. I'm fine to drive. And that drive was so strange to me because I'm driving home and I'm driving past traffic and I'm driving through past people walking their dogs and walking with their babies and, you know, husbands and wives and people just living their life. And I've just lost like the most important person to me, and it just was so strange. I was a bit like, all of these people have no idea who the world has just lost. Yeah. And I just wanted to say to everyone, everyone needs to stop.
Just like, freeze right now.
Everyone needs to stop. Yeah. Like, Josh has just died. Like, he is the most amazing person. Don't you realise? It was really strange to me. Yeah. And that moment actually taught me that we could be driving anywhere. Anyone could be driving anywhere today or tomorrow or walking their dog, and someone around them that they don't know
100%
could be going through that, and you just don't know. Yeah. But yeah, we drove back to my house and we just cried for hours. We just cried for hours. And, my beautiful auntie, she was wonderful. She, arranged all of our flights, the soonest flight we could get on to come back to Newcastle. She was great with helping. And, yeah, so we just cried and cried, really, all afternoon and all night.
I think, I can only imagine in that sense of you've just been given the worst news for your mum to come out of being so poorly for 6 weeks, to then jump on a plane, literally have her heart smashed in a million pieces, to jump on a plane to get to you, to be able to deliver that news to you face to face is just... I mean, a mom would do anything for her children, you know, but to put herself through that and to be able, but then for you both to be, and your auntie, but in that situation where I would imagine all you want to do is just go home.
Yeah.
and you feel like you're a million miles away, just to have some kind of familiarity, you know.
Absolutely.
Because was that your family home where your mum was as well?
No, she was at a different home, which felt like home to me too, and she had like her little dog at the time. So, yeah, I just wanted to be back there, and I wanted to, just be with like my aunties and my cousins, and yeah, gosh, it was strange. It was so strange.
And because it's, because Josh was in another country as well, it's just so removed. Like I would imagine like you're already trying to grasp what's gone on, which feels so surreal and just so like, what? Like, what? And then for it to be in a place where, you know, you couldn't picture really other than the pictures he sent you, but it's not like you'd all lived over there or you'd been there with him or, you know, it just seems so distant and so far removed.
For sure.
Is that how you were kind of, like it's not tangible? Like you can't, I know that's not the right word, but you know.
No, I know what you're saying. And because we were so used to him not being home because he had been traveling. Right. He'd be at home for half of the year. The other half of the year he was away, and he did that consistently for years.
Yeah.
So it just kind of felt like, and for a very long time after, it felt like he's going to come home soon because you're used to him not being there because he's always overseas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it broke my heart that he was so far away and just by himself in a beautiful place, mind you. And thankfully, you know, we were told that he probably wouldn't have felt any pain. It would have been very instant. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really, really was painful for a couple of weeks it took for him to come home.
The whole process of
that
healing path, and will continue forever and a day beyond that healing path, and you know, feelings and that angst and that heartbreak, you literally just put yourself straight back there. That is something that never ever goes away, right? So, and your mom and your dad would be saying exactly the same. When Josh was able to come home and your dad came home with him, would that be fair? Did your dad have to fly ahead and then the body was brought over back, or?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. I'm sure that Dad had come home before Josh came home. I can't remember though.
It just seems so, and rightly so. Once Josh was home, did you have a celebration of life for him?
We did, yeah, which was amazing. And, you know, something that actually surprised me too is I really wanted to see him because I think there was, when he came home, and because I think there was part of me that still
didn't believe it. And I needed to see him. Yeah.
I think for my own mind to be able to accept that, yes, this is not just a dream. This is actually real.
Yeah. Did you see him?
I did, yeah. And I'm so glad that I did, even though it really, you know, it wasn't him.
No.
You know, it was just his physical shell.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I did.
With that, you know, again, unfortunately, had, you know, conversations with friends who've viewed loved ones and all of that, and having to make that decision ourselves as well with Glenn. I personally really toyed with that, and that's not to talk about that today, and I didn't end up doing. When I spoke to someone who nobody knew, I spoke to someone who I trusted in that, you know, in that field, like that I needed, and they just said, "You'll just know. Don't question it. What comes first, just go with that."
Yeah.
And I think I was allowing my head to rule my heart, and I wasn't, you know, and then thinking about the kids and things like that. But everyone else I've spoken to, they just said no. They just knew either way, yes or no.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And then to trust that decision you made was the best decision for you.
Yeah.
And not allow any external, even if it's a family member who loves you, and especially not a family member who loves you because they're emotionally attached.
Yeah, that's
right. So it has to be right for you.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that you found some kind of peace